Your life will only rise as high as your attitude allows it. Let that sink in. Every decision you make, every goal you chase, every challenge you face. Your attitude is the silent force pulling you up or dragging you down. It's not just about skills, money, or opportunities. You've probably seen people with every advantage in the world fail because their attitude poisoned everything they touched. And you've also seen people with little to their name climb higher than anyone expected, simply because they carried an attitude that refused to quit. Here's the truth. Your attitude is shaping your altitude right now. The way you talk to yourself, the way you respond when things don't go your way, the way you carry yourself in front of others, all of it is building the ceiling on your future. This isn't theory, it's daily life. It's what makes you get up when you're tired, what keeps you moving when doors close, and what stops you from wasting years blaming instead of building. In this message, we'll cut through the excuses, the fears, and the doubts, and we'll get to the heart of what truly decides how high you rise in life. Your attitude. Number 1, decide to see problems as tests, not punishments today. One of the hardest things in life is to face a problem and not immediately feel defeated by it. Most people, when they hit a wall, when something unexpected happens, their first reaction is anger, discouragement. They say, why me? Why now? Why does this always happen to me? And right there in that first moment, they set the tone for everything that follows. They see the problem as a punishment, as if life has singled them out. And from that attitude, they shrink. They give less. They stop trying. But here is the truth. Your attitude toward that problem will decide how high you rise or how low you sink. And the first choice you must make is to see every problem as a test, not as a punishment. When you see a problem as a punishment, you become bitter. You walk around with heavy shoulders. You lose energy. You lose focus. And you lose your belief in yourself. You start to think the world is unfair, that people are against you, that luck has abandoned you. But when you see a problem as a test, everything changes. A test means there is something to prove, something to learn, something to gain. A test calls you to rise higher than you were yesterday. A punishment pulls you down, but a test lifts you up. And that difference is everything. Think about the times in your own life when you faced a real difficulty. Maybe it was losing a job. Maybe it was a broken relationship. Maybe it was failing at something you worked hard for. If you felt punished, you probably carried anger, resentment, or even shame. You told yourself stories about how unfair it all was. But if you faced it as a test, you asked yourself questions like, what can I learn? What can I improve? How can I come back stronger? The problem was the same, but the altitude you reached was determined by the attitude you chose. Life will never stop sending you problems. That is the part we cannot control. What you can control is whether you see those problems as weights that crush you or as tests that stretch you. Every test in school is designed to measure your knowledge. Every test in life is designed to measure your growth. But unlike school, life doesn't hand out grades at the end of the semester. Life hands out results in the way you live, the opportunities you create, the person you become. Now here is where psychology comes in. The human mind is built to avoid pain and chase comfort. That is why problems feel like punishments. They hurt, they inconvenience us, they push us outside of what feels safe. But the same mind that avoids pain is also built to grow under pressure. Stress, when viewed as punishment, destroys confidence. Stress, when viewed as a test, builds resilience. This is not some fancy concept. This is reality. Think about your own body. If you never put your muscles under stress, they never grow. If you never put your mind under stress, it never sharpens. So the real question becomes, how do you decide in the moment to see a problem as a test and not as a punishment? It begins with awareness. When you feel the sting of disappointment, stop yourself. Do not run to anger. Do not run to blame. Pause and say, this is a test. I am being asked to grow. Those words may sound simple, but they change your entire state. You are no longer the victim. You are the student, and a student has control, because a student can study, prepare, adjust, and improve. The second step is to shift your questions. Punishment thinking asks, Why me? Test thinking asks, what now? Why me? Keeps you stuck in the dust. What now? Pulls you into action. The problem is already here. Asking why won't move you forward. Asking what now puts you in motion. It focuses you on the next step, the solution, the adjustment. Third, you must recognize that every test is temporary. No problem lasts forever, but the way you face it leaves a permanent mark on you. If you choose punishment thinking, you carry bitterness, fear, and excuses long after the problem is gone. If you choose test thinking, you carry wisdom, confidence, and strength long after the problem is solved. Let me give you something very practical. When you wake up in the morning, remind yourself that problems will come today. That is not negative thinking. That is reality. Something will not go as planned. Someone will disappoint you. Something will break. And when it happens, you will have a choice. If you already decided in advance to treat problems as tests, then you are ready. You won't be shocked. You won't feel cursed. You will feel challenged. And that mindset will save you from wasting hours or days drowning in negativity. Attitude is a choice, but it is not always an easy choice. Your emotions will try to control you. Fear will whisper, you can't handle this. Anger will scream, this is unfair. Sadness will say, give up. But when you treat the problem as a test, you respond, this is my moment to prove I can rise higher. The same emotions that were pulling you down now become fuel to push you forward. Think about the stories you tell yourself. Punishment thinking creates stories of defeat. I always fail. I never get a break. People always hurt me. These stories become your identity, and they keep you low. Test thinking creates stories of growth. I am stronger because of this. I learned something important here. I will be ready then time. These stories become your identity too, but they lift you higher. Your life follows the story you choose to tell. Now there is something else that matters. Seeing problems as tests doesn't mean you deny the pain. It doesn't mean you pretend everything is fine. That is not strength. That is denial. A test can hurt. A test can exhaust you. A test can make you cry. But even in the middle of the pain, you still decide this is a test of my patience, of my endurance, of my character. That way, even in the struggle, you feel a sense of purpose. You are not lost in the pain. You are shaping yourself self. This is why some people keep rising in life, while others stay stuck. They both face problems. They both feel the pain. But one sees punishment and sinks. The other sees a test and climbs. The problem didn't decide the outcome. Their attitude did. Here is a strategy you can use right now. Write down the last 3 problems you faced. Then ask yourself, did I treat them as punishments or as tests? If you treated them as punishments, how did that attitude affect your actions? If you treated them as tests, what growth did you gain? Do this exercise, and you will begin to see the patterns in your own thinking. Once you see the patterns, you can start to change them. Another strategy is to surround yourself with people who see tests, not punishments. Attitudes are contagious. If you spend time around people who complain, blame, and feel cursed, you will start thinking the same way. If you spend time around people who look at problems as challenges to overcome, you will start thinking like them. Choose carefully, because the voices you hear every day shape the altitude you reach. The truth is, life does not care about your excuses. Life does not slow down for your complaints. Life responds to your attitude. If you shrink, life gives you smaller opportunity. If you rise, life gives you bigger ones. If you treat problems as punishments, you close doors. If you treat them as tests, you open doors. It is that simple, and it is that difficult. I want you to imagine your future 5 years from now. Will you be stronger, wiser, and more capable? Or will you be bitter, tired, and stuck? The answer depends not on what problems you will face, but on how you choose to see them. You cannot predict the problems, but you can decide your attitude toward them today. And that decision will decide your altitude tomorrow. So here is the challenge. The next time you face a problem, pause. Before you complain, before you blame, before you sink into self-pity, ask yourself, is this a punishment or is this a test? Choose test. And when you choose test, you use growth. You choose progress. You choose altitude. That is the power of attitude. That is how attitude determines altitude. And that is a decision you can make today and every day forward. Number 2, train your mind daily to expect effort, not ease. Every day you wake up, you are faced with a choice. You can walk into the day expecting things to be easy, or you can walk into the day prepared for effort. The difference between these two mindsets is the difference between progress and frustration, between growth and disappointment. When you expect ease, you are surprised and discouraged when life gets hard. When you expect effort, you are ready for the challenges, and instead of breaking down, you rise up. Too many people live with the false belief that success, happiness, or fulfillment should come without much struggle. They want results without the grind, rewards without sacrifice, achievements without the sweat. And every time reality shows up and demands effort, they give up or feel cheated. But the truth is, nothing of value is built on ease. Everything that lasts requires effort. Is not the enemy. Effort is the price. Think about how often people set goals and then abandon them in weeks. Why? Because they thought the process would be simple. They thought motivation alone would carry them. They expected smooth days, but when tiredness hit, when distractions came, when resistance showed up, they were caught off guard. They thought the path would feel easy, and it didn't. That shock is what kills most dreams. It's not the difficulty itself. It's the surprise of the difficulty. This is why you must train your mind daily to expect effort. Not once in a while, not just when you're feeling inspired, but every single day. When you wake up, remind yourself, progress will take effort today. Growth will take effort today. Relationships will take effort today. Health will take effort today. Work will take effort today. If you prepare your mind for effort, you're never disappointed when it shows up. You already knew it was part of the deal. This mindset gives you an edge that most people don't have. They are waiting for things to be smooth. You are prepared for things to be hard. They are discouraged when obstacles show up. You are expecting obstacles, so you handle them. They quit when the excitement wears off. You keep going because you trained for effort, not ease. Human psychology proves this again and again. Our brains seek comfort. We are wired to avoid pain and chase pleasure. But growth never comes from comfort. If you only do what feels easy, you stay where you are. If you embrace effort, you expand what you can do. It's simple. Your muscles grow when you push them with resistance. Your mind grows when you push it with discipline. Your character grows when you push yourself through challenges. So how do you train your mind to expect effort? You start by changing the way you talk to yourself. Most people say, I hope this is not too hard. Instead, you say, I know this will be hard, and I am ready. Most people say, I hope this goes smoothly. Instead, you say, whatever comes, I will put in the work. By shifting your self-talk, you shift your expectation. And when your expectations are right, your behavior follows. Another way is to practice small disciplines daily. Effort is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it gets weak. But if you practice effort every day, even in small things, you build a habit of endurance. Wake up on time, even when you don't feel like it. Exercise even when you're tired. Read when it's easier to scroll. Save money when it's easier to spend. These small acts of effort train your mind that nothing worth having is supposed to be easy. You condition yourself to see effort as normal. You must also stop glorifying ease. Too many people talk about wanting an easy life, but an easy life makes you soft. Ease robs you of growth. Ease leaves you unprepared for real struggles. The people who rise in life are not those who had it easy, but those who worked through difficulty. Expecting effort makes you stronger every single day. Let's be honest. Most of the frustration people feel is not from problems themselves, but from the belief that there shouldn't be problems. They think relationships should flow without disagreement. They think careers should climb without setbacks. They think personal growth should happen without sacrifice. When reality doesn't match that belief, they feel defeated. But when you train your mind to expect effort, you stop fighting reality. You understand that effort is the price of growth, and you pay it gladly. Think about athletes. They don't walk into training hoping it will be easy. They expect it to be tough, to push them in, to hurt. And because they expect that, they're not shocked when the effort burns. They know that's how growth works. Life is no different. You cannot demand success without effort. You cannot demand strength without struggle. If you prepare for effort, you win the battle before it starts. There's also a powerful shift that happens when you endurance effort. You start to value yourself more. When you put effort into your goals, your health, your relationships, you feel ownership. You know you paid the price. You know you earned it, and that creates pride and confidence. On the other hand, when you avoid effort, you never feel that sense of earned value. Things may look good on the outside, but inside you know you didn't push. That knowledge eats away at your confidence. So every day, train your mind. Wake up and remind yourself, I am built for effort. I am prepared for effort. I am ready to give effort. Say it until you believe it. Say it until it feels normal. Because once effort feels normal, nothing can break you. Effort builds momentum too. Once you start putting effort in, you begin to see progress. And progress creates energy. That energy fuels more effort. And soon you are in a rhythm. But it starts with the expectation that effort is required. If you sit waiting for things to feel easy, you never start. If you start expecting effort, you move forward even when motivation is low. Effort also protects you from giving up too early. Most people stop right before the breakthrough. They worked, but because they expected ease, they thought they were failing. In reality, they just hadn't put in enough effort yet. The mind that expects effort doesn't stop. It knows the breakthrough is always after the struggle, not before. Another thing to remember is that effort is not punishment. Effort is privilege. It means you're alive, you're capable, you're in the game. The people who complain about effort forget that it is effort that makes achievement possible. You don't dread it, you embrace it. You don't fear it, you welcome it. When you change your relationship with effort, you change your entire life. Suddenly you stop looking for shortcuts that never work. You stop comparing yourself to others and wishing it were easier. You start focusing on your own growth and your own capacity. You stop waiting for motivation to strike, and you simply do the work, because effort has become your default setting. If you want to know how high you can go, the answer is simple. Look at how much effort you are to give, not how much talent you have, not how much luck you get, but how much effort you consistently bring. That is the ceiling of your life, and you raise that ceiling every time you train your mind to expect effort instead of ease. So starting today, no more complaints about how hard things are. Hard is normal. Effort is normal. Growth is not supposed to feel comfortable. Success is not supposed to come without a price. Every time you feel tired, every time you feel tested, remind yourself, this is exactly how it's supposed to feel. This is what progress feels like. And once you accept that truth, something beautiful happens. You stop resisting the work. You stop resenting the grind. You start embracing it as part of who you are. And the more you embrace effort, the higher you rise. Because in the end, attitude is everything. If your attitude expects ease, you will always be disappointed. If your attitude expects effort, you will always be ready. And readiness is what lifts you higher than you ever thought possible. That is how attitude determines altitude. That is why you must train your mind daily to expect effort, not ease. And when you do, you will not only handle life better, you will live stronger, aim higher, and achieve more than you ever imagined. Number 3, challenge yourself daily to think solutions, not complaints. Every single day, you are faced with 2 choices when problems or frustrations come up. You can pour your energy into complaints, or you can pour that same energy into finding solutions. That decision may look small in the moment, but it shapes the course of your entire life. But complaining feels good for a short time because it gives you an outlet, but it solves nothing. Thinking in terms of solutions may feel harder at first because it requires effort, but it leads to progress, control, and results. The difference between staying stuck and moving forward is simply where you direct your thoughts. Complaining is easy because it doesn't demand responsibility. It allows you to point fingers, to vent, to release your emotions. But every minute you spend in that state is a minute you are not improving the situation. The problem doesn't get smaller because you complained. In fact, the more you complain, the bigger the problem feels. It grows in your mind because you're feeding it attention without taking any steps to resolve it. That is how negativity steals your energy. When you challenge yourself daily to think in terms of solutions, you begin building a new mental habit. At first it feels uncomfortable because your mind is used to defaulting to complaints. But each time you interrupt that pattern and shift to asking, what can I do about this? You train your brain to look for options. Over time, this becomes natural. Instead of being the person who always has something to grumble about, you become the person who always has an idea for the next step forward. That change alone will raise your value in every area of life. Think about your workplace. Everyone knows that one colleague who constantly talks about what's wrong, the boss, the deadlines, the clients, the hours. After a while, people stop listening because nothing changes. Now think of the person who acknowledges the challenges but immediately follows with possible solutions. That person earns respect, trust, and opportunities. The first person drains energy. The second person creates energy. The only difference is the choice to think in solutions instead of complaints. The same applies at home. A family that lives in constant complaining creates tension and distance. Every problem becomes bigger because it's replayed over and over. But a family that chooses to focus on solutions builds strength together. They may face the same financial struggles or daily stresses, but their conversations move toward fixing, adjusting, and supporting instead of sinking into blame. This approach doesn't erase problems, but it prevents problems from running the household. There's also a psychological reason this works. Your brain has something called the reticular activating system. It filters what you notice based on what you focus on. When you spend your energy on complaints, your brain looks for more things to tolerate. You train yourself to see only what's wrong. But when you discipline yourself to think in solutions, your brain starts scanning for opportunities, resources, and options. Suddenly, you begin to see ways forward that you didn't notice before. The facts didn't change, your focus did. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. Complaints often begin with real issues, but the mistake is staying there. A solution mindset doesn't deny the problem. It acknowledges it quickly and then redirects energy into, how do we fix this? What action can I take right now? That's the difference between being powerless and being proactive. Another important part of this habit is language. Pay attention to how you speak. Do you say things like, this always happens to me, or nothing ever works out? That kind of language locks you into a victim state. Replace it with language that drives solutions. This is tough, but here's what I can do, or this didn't work, but I'll try another way. Your words don't just describe your reality, they shape. The more you speak solutions, the more your mind leans toward finding them. It's also worth how complaints affect your health. Studies show that constant negativity increases stress, weakens the immune system, and shortens lifespan. Complaining keeps your body in a state of tension, while problem solving creates clarity and relief. The moment you shift why is this happening, to here's my next step, your body feels lighter because it senses control. That shift can reduce stress immediately. Now, training yourself to think in solutions requires daily practice. It's not something you do once and forget. Life throws new problems every day, which means you need to reinforce the habit daily. Start small. The next time something annoys you, traffic, a delay, an unexpected setback, catch yourself before you complain. Ask, what's one small action I can take right now? It might be adjusting your plan, using the time for reflection, or making a quick call. Small solution thinking in everyday frustrations builds the muscle for bigger challenges. You can also use a simple technique. When a complaint comes to mind, write it down. Then force yourself to list 3 possible solutions right under it. This exercise retrains your brain to associate every complaint with a demand for action. Over time, your brain stops stopping at the complaint stage and jumps straight to solutions. This approach also makes you a better leader. Whether in business, family, or community, people naturally follow those who bring direction, not just criticism. A leader who constantly complains loses credibility, but a leader who listens to the issues and then pushes for solutions inspires confidence. People want to be around someone who believes there's a way forward. Think also about relationships. Complaining partners, friends, or teammates drain each other. But when both people adopt a solution mindset, conflicts are handled faster and with less damage. Instead of replaying the same argument, they focus on resolving it and moving forward. That builds trust, because each person knows the other is more interested in fixing than in fighting. The long-term impact of solution thinking is that you create momentum. Complaining keeps you stuck in the same place, but solutions create movement. Even small steps add up, and the more you move, the more confidence you gain. That content makes the next challenge easier to face. Before long, people will look at you and say, "You always seem to find a way." That reputation opens doors that complaints never will. One of the greatest freedoms in life is realizing that you don't need everything to be perfect to make progress. You don't need every resource, every advantage, or every condition to be ideal. You just need to stop wasting time in complaints and start building with whatever you have. A solution-focused mind makes the most of limited tools. And from that, better tools eventually come. This is also how innovation happens. Every great invention, every breakthrough, started with a problem. The difference is that some people complained about it, while others asked, "How do we solve this?" The people who asked the second question are the ones who changed the world. That is proof that your attitude toward problems matters more than the problems themselves. So here is the challenge for you. For the next 7 days, every time you catch yourself complaining, stop and turn it into a solution question. If you hear yourself saying, "This is so unfair," immediately follow with, "What can I do about it?" If you hear yourself saying, "I hate this situation," follow with, "How can I improve it, even slightly?" Make this a discipline. At first it takes effort, but soon it becomes automatic. When you start thinking solutions, you'll notice that your energy changes. You'll feel less drained, more confident, and more motivated. People around you will notice too, and they'll be drawn to your positivity. Your results will improve, not because the world suddenly got easier, but because you chose to think in a way that moves you forward. And that is the essence of growth. Your altitude in life is not determined by how many complaints you can list, but by how many solutions you can create. Every day you have the choice: sink into negativity or rise into possibility. Challenge yourself daily to think solutions, not complaints, and watch how your life begins to rise. Number 4, choose to see rejection as guidance, not final loss. Rejection is one of the hardest things for people to deal with because it strikes directly at the human need for acceptance and belonging. When someone turns you down, when an opportunity slips through your hands, when a door you wanted to walk through closes, it can feel like a final judgment on your worth. That sting is real. Nobody enjoys being told no. But what separates those who keep climbing higher from those who stop is not whether they face rejection, but how they interpret it. If you choose to see rejection as guidance, it becomes a tool for growth. If you treat it as a final loss, it becomes the end of your journey. The truth is that rejection has been misinterpreted by most people their entire lives. From childhood, when we felt excluded, to adulthood, when we get passed over for a job or turned down in a relationship, we interpret rejection as a statement of failure. We carry those early wounds into every new attempt. But rejection does not mean failure. It means redirection. It means feedback. It means something needs to be learned, adjusted, or timed differently. Think about it clearly. If every rejection truly were final, there would be no successful person alive today. Every entrepreneur has been told no countless times. Every writer has had manuscripts dismissed. Every athlete has been cut from teams or lost games. Every leader has faced doubt and dismissal. What makes them different is not that they avoided rejection, but that they treated rejection as guidance. They asked, "What can I learn from this? What can I change? Where can I grow?" They turned rejection into fuel. The human mind is quick to personalize rejection. When someone says no, we translate it into "I'm not good enough." But the reality is, rejection rarely means that. More often it means you need more preparation, or your timing was off, or the fit wasn't right. It may even mean there is something better waiting that you can't yet see. But you will never discover that truth if you stop at the first no and label it as final loss. One of the most powerful ways to change your relationship with rejection is to redefine what it represents. Instead of saying, "This is the end," say, "This is information." Information is valuable. It tells you what isn't working. It shows you where you need to improve. It reveals whether the path you're on is the right one, or whether a shift is needed. If you see rejection as information, you don't feel destroyed by it. You feel guided by it. Another key is to look at patterns. A single rejection might not tell you much, but repeated rejections in the same area reveals something important. If you keep failing in the same interview stage, that's not life punishing you. It's guidance, pointing out a skill you need to strengthen. If you keep facing rejection in relationships, it's not proof that you are unlovable. It's hints to reflect on your choices, your communication, or your standards. Repetition in rejection is not cruelty. It's clarity. It's life saying, pay attention here. You must also remember that rejection protects you from the wrong fit. So many people cry over doors that close, not realizing those doors were not meant for them. A job that turned you down might have been a place that drained your spirit. A person who rejected you might have been someone who could not grow with you. A deal that fell apart might have locked you into years of struggle. Sometimes rejection saves you from a path that would have cost you more than you realize. That is guidance at its highest form. Now, this doesn't mean rejection feels pleasant. It hurts because it confronts your ego and challenges your identity. But you can separate the pain from the interpretation. Pain is temporary. Interpretation is permanent if you let it be. If you interpret rejection as a death sentence for your dreams, you carry the pain into your future. If you interpret rejection as a teacher, you extract the lesson and keep moving forward. Training yourself to think this way takes conscious effort. Each time you are rejected, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what is this guiding me toward? What lesson can I extract? What adjustment should I make? By asking those questions, you interrupt the spiral of negative thoughts and replace them with constructive ones. Over time, this becomes your default response. Instead of sinking into despair, you lean into reflection. The people who master this attitude rise higher because rejection no longer stops them. They move through more attempts, they take more risks, and they reach more opportunity. Their altitude grows because their attitude toward rejection is healthy. They don't fear it, they use it. Meanwhile, those who see rejection as final loss stop after a few tries, retreat into comfort, and never realize how close they were to success. It's also important to remind yourself that rejection is universal. You are not the only one facing it. Every human being, no matter how successful, has been rejected. The difference is how they interpret it. If you think you are alone in being turned down, you feel isolated. When you realize rejection is part of everyone's story, you feel encouraged. You understand that you are walking the same path as those who eventually triumph. Another practical approach is to create a rejection journal. Each time you face rejection, write it down. Record what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. Then record what new opportunities or growth came as a result. Over time, you'll see clearly that rejection guided you toward better choices and better outcomes. What once felt like an ending will reveal itself as a turning point. Rejection also sharpens resilience. If you avoid it, you stay fragile. If you face it repeatedly and keep moving, you build mental toughness. You learn that a no doesn't kill you. You learn that you can survive the sting and keep going. That resilience becomes your secret weapon in life. Because most people quit early. You won't. You'll keep pushing. Because you know rejection is not loss. It is guidance. And when you finally achieve what you're after, rejection will make it sweeter. You'll look back and realize that every closed door shaped you into someone strong enough to handle the open door. Without rejection, you might not have built the patience, humility, or discipline you now carry. The very thing you once hated will become the reason you are capable of success. So when rejection comes, do not collapse. Do not label or else as unworthy. Instead, pause, breathe, and remember, this is guidance. Guidance to grow, guidance to adjust, guidance to wait, or guidance to aim higher. The rejection is not the end of the story. It is one chapter, one piece of feedback, one step in a longer journey. Choose this attitude, and you rise above bitterness. Choose this attitude, and you discover strength others never find. Choose this attitude, and rejection becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Because the truth is simple. The way you see rejection determines whether you stop or keep going. If you choose to see rejection as guidance, you will never stop moving forward. And that movement, that persistence, that resilience is exactly what determines your altitude in life. Number 5, direct your focus daily to what you can control. Every single day you wake up, there are hundreds of things happening in the world that you cannot control. The weather, the economy, the moods of other people, unexpected events, and sudden changes all move without your permission. If you waste your energy fighting these things, you end the day exhausted and defeated. But if you direct your focus to what you can control, you gain strength, progress, and peace of mind. The attitude you bring into each day determines whether you climb or whether you sink. And that attitude depends on where your focus goes. The mind has a habit of wandering into places it doesn't belong. It spends hours worrying about what other people think. It replays past mistakes over and over, even though they can't be changed. It projects fear into the future about what might happen, most of which never will. That is how people waste their lives, focusing on what is outside of their control. The more they obsess over it, the less power they feel. And when you feel powerless, you stop taking action on the things that actually matter. Directing your focus daily to what you can control is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing wisely where to invest your energy. You can't control how other people behave, but you can control how you respond. You can't control whether life throws obstacles at you, but you can control whether you keep moving forward. You can't control the past, but you can control what lessons you carry into today. You can't control the entire future, but you can control the choices you make right now. That shift alone gives you back power. When you place your attention on what is within your control, something powerful happens. Your confidence grows. Confidence doesn't come from certainty that life will be easy. Confidence comes from the belief that whatever happens, you can manage your response. You can stay disciplined when tempted, calm when stressed, consistent when distracted. That belief is built daily by focusing on what you can control instead of what you can't. Think about how many arguments, frustrations, and disappointments are rooted in trying to control things outside your reach. You get upset when someone else doesn't act the way you want. You stress when outcomes don't happen on your timeline. You get angry when situations refuse to bend to your expectations. All of that energy produces no result. The only thing you truly can control is your effort, your mindset, your choices, and your habit. Everything else is outside of your hands. The sooner you accept this truth, the freer you become. Directing your focus is a discipline. It means catching yourself when your thoughts drift toward complaints about politics, gossip about coworkers, or jealousy about what others have. It means pulling your mind back and asking, what can I do right now that is within my control? That question is the anchor. It grounds you in the present, where action is possible, and it stops you from drowning in things you can't change. Practical examples make this clear. If you're worried about your health, focus on the food you eat today, the exercise you do today, the sleep you get tonight. If you're worried about money, focus on your spending choices today, the effort you put into your work today, the skills you build that will create opportunity. If you're struggling in a relationship, focus on how you communicate today, the patience you show today, the honesty you practice today. You can't control everything, but you can always control something. And that is where progress begins. This mindset also reduces stress. Most anxiety comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. People lie awake at night, replaying conversations, predicting disasters, imagining scenarios. Their minds are busy, but their actions are frozen. When you train yourself to separate what you can influence from what you can't, you quiet that storm. You stop wasting time on endless mental loops. You take ownership only of what belongs to you. That brings clarity, and clarity brings calm. Another benefit is that it builds resilience. Life will always deliver surprises, setbacks, and disappointments. If your peace depends on everything going your way, you will never be steady. But if your peace depends on focusing only on your response, nothing can it away. You may not control the storm, but you control your actions in the storm. And every time you prove that to yourself, you become stronger. You also become more effective. People who scatter their attention on what they can't control rarely finish what matters. They complain, they argue, they waste hours scrolling or worrying. But those who focus on their own actions get things done. They write the page, make the call, learn the skill, show up consistently. Over time, those small, controlled actions add up to massive. That is how altitude is built. By stacking controlled actions, not by waiting for the world to cooperate. This is not to say you ignore everything around you. Awareness of the world is important, but obsession with what you can't change steals your strength. The wisest people notice what's happening, but invest their energy only where their actions make a difference. They know the circle of control is small, but it is powerful, and they live inside that circle every day. It is helpful to remind yourself of this principle in the morning. When you wake up, take a moment to decide where you will place your focus. Say to yourself, today I will give my energy only to what I can control. That daily reminder keeps your mind sharp. Throughout the day, when distractions and frustrations show up, you bring yourself back to that commitment. You stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, what can I do with what I have? Directing your focus also makes you a better influence on others. People respect those who stay steady under pressure. They trust those who act responsibly instead of reacting emotionally. When you show that you manage yourself, you become an example that others look to. Complaints and negativity spread quickly, but so does composure and discipline. By focusing on your own actions, you raise the standard for those around you. Over the long term, this discipline builds a life of meaning, because when you control your choices, you shape your character, and your character determines the opportunities you earn, the relationships you build, and the legacy you leave. People may not remember the things you couldn't control, but they will always remember how you carried yourself in the middle of them. So every day you have a decision. You can waste time worrying about other people's approval, things you can't predict, and events you can't change. Or you can invest your focus in your effort, your growth, your actions, your discipline. One drains you, the other builds you. And the choice you make, repeated daily, is what determines your altitude in life. Direct your focus daily to what you can control, and you'll find a sense of power that most people never experience. You'll live with clarity instead of confusion, progress instead of stagnation, confidence instead of doubt. And in the end, that choice will separate you from the crowd. Because while others are busy fighting battles they can't win, you will be rising higher by mastering the one thing you were always meant to master, yourself. Number 6. Remind yourself daily that excuses destroy inner strength. Excuses are silent thieves. They sound harmless when you say them, but each one takes away a piece of your strength. Every time you explain why you didn't follow through, every time you justify why you didn't give your best, you chip away at your own belief in yourself. Excuses don't just stop you from doing the task in front of you. They slowly convince your mind that you cannot rely on yourself. And when you cannot rely on yourself, you lose the core of inner strength. It's easy to underestimate the damage excuses create, because they often sound reasonable. You're tired, you had a long day, things didn't go as planned, someone else didn't cooperate, or the timing wasn't right. These explanations feel comforting because they protect your ego in the short term. They keep you from admitting that you didn't do what you could have done. But that comfort is dangerous. It robs you of the pain that pushes growth. It allows you to stay the same while pretending that you tried. What most people don't realize is that excuses are addictive. The more you use them, the easier they come. Soon, they show up before you even attempt something. You think of all the reasons it won't work before you even begin. That's when excuses transform from small lies into barriers. They stop you from starting. They stop you from persisting. They stop you from finishing. Excuses kill progress before it even takes root. Inner strength is built by facing reality, by holding yourself accountable, and by refusing to lower the standard. Each time you push through discomfort instead of explaining it away, you build trust with yourself. That trust is the foundation of confidence. You know you will show up, even when it's hard. You know you won't run when it's uncomfortable. You know you can depend on yourself. Without that trust, you will always feel shaky inside, no matter what success looks like on the outside. Think about the times in your life when you felt the strongest, the most alive, the most proud. Those moments weren't built on excuses. They were built on discipline. They came when you stayed late to finish something, when you kept your word even though it was inconvenient, when you did the workout even though you were tired, when you had the hard conversation instead of avoiding it. Every one of those choices added to your inner strength. And every time you made the opposite choice, when you gave in to an excuse, you weakened it. The danger of excuses is that they feel small. Missing one workout, skipping one commitment, procrastinating one project. It doesn't feel like much, but excuses are cumulative. They build up quietly until you wake up one day realizing you've built a habit of surrender. That habit becomes your character, and your character shapes your destiny. Excuses don't ruin you overnight. They ruin you little by little, until your strength is gone and your potential is wasted. There's also a psychological effect that's easy to miss. Every excuse you tell yourself gets recorded in your subconscious. When you say, "I couldn't because I was too tired," your mind remembers. Next time you face resistance, your brain pulls up that memory and says, "We quit before, we can quit again." Each excuse creates a file your brain will reference in the future. Over time, your identity becomes tied to giving up. That's how inner strength is destroyed from the inside out. On the other hand, when you reject excuses, you send a different message to yourself. You tell your mind, "We do what we said we'd do, no matter how we feel." That message builds a library of discipline. Each time you honor your commitment, your brain stores evidence that you can rely on yourself. And when the next challenge comes, that evidence gives you courage. This is how inner strength is built, through a long track record of not allowing excuses to win. To overcome excuses, you must become brutally honest with yourself. The hardest person to face is the one in the mirror. It's easy to fool others with excuses, but you know the truth. You know when you could have done more. You know when you let comfort win. You know when you took the easy path. And until you confront that truth, you will never break free from the cycle. Honesty may sting at first, but it heals you. Excuses soothe you first, but they weaken you. Another key is to replace excuses with ownership. Instead of saying, "I didn't have time," say, "I chose not to make it a priority." Instead of saying, "I was too tired," say, "I didn't manage my energy well." That language is hard, but it gives you back control. When you own your choices, you give yourself the power to make better ones. When you hide behind excuses, you hand over that power to circumstances. Ownership is strength. Excuses are weakness. It's also important to understand that excuses don't only affect you, they affect everyone around you. When you don't follow through, others lose trust in you. When you let excuses guide your life, you set a low standard for your family, your team, your friends. Your example teaches others what is acceptable. And whether you realize it or not, your excuses give them permission to lower their own standards. But when you reject excuses and hold yourself accountable, you inspire others to do the same. Strength spreads just as easily as weakness. So what can you do to break the habit of excuses? Start with awareness. Catch yourself the next time you say, "I can't because," pause and act. Is this truly impossible? Or is this an excuse? Most of the time, you'll realize it's an excuse. Then challenge yourself to act anyway, even in a small way. Each victory against excuses builds momentum. Another strategy is to make your commitments visible. Write them down, tell someone, or track them. Excuses thrive in the dark, where only you know about them. But when your commitments are out in the open, excuses lose their power. You either follow through or face the discomfort of broken promises. That discomfort can be a powerful motivator to stay. Also, remind yourself of the cost of excuses. Every time you are tempted, visualize the strength you're giving away. Picture yourself weaker, less confident, less capable because of this one excuse. Then visualize yourself stronger, prouder, more disciplined because you refused it. That contrast can help you choose the harder path in the moment. Excuses are easy to make, but so is discipline when you train it. Each day you decide which one to practice. Over time, those decisions build your character. You either become a person of excuses or a person of strength. There is no middle ground. The choice is made in the small moments, day after day. Inner strength is not built by chance. It is built by daily choices to take responsibility, to do what you said you'd do, to refuse the easy out. And every time you remind yourself that excuses destroy inner strength, you recommit to the path of growth. You refuse to settle for weakness disguised as comfort. You choose the discipline that leads to confidence, resilience, and pride. At the end of your life, you won't look back proud of the excuses you made. You'll look back proud of the times you showed up when it was hard, the times you refused to quit, the times you demanded more of yourself. That is the legacy of strength. That is the reward of refusing excuses. And that is why, every single day, you must remind yourself, excuses destroy inner strength, and discipline builds it. The choice is always yours. Number 7. Condition your thoughts daily to expect progress, not perfection. Perfection has trapped more people than failure ever has. The moment you tell yourself that everything must be flawless before you act, before you speak, before you try, you chain yourself to inaction. Progress, on the other hand, sets you free. Progress is forward motion. No matter how small, progress is learning, adjusting, improving little by little. To live a strong and fulfilling life, you must condition your thoughts daily to expect progress, not perfection. That shift in mindset changes how you work, how you grow, and how you feel about yourself. The pressure to be perfect is everywhere. People scroll through social media and compare their real lives to someone else's highlight reel. They believe they must look perfect, sound perfect, perform perfect, or else they are not worthy. That belief paralyzes them. They hesitate to take risks. They hesitate to share their ideas. They hesitate to start new journeys because they don't want to look foolish. But perfection is a lie. Nobody achieves it. Nobody sustains it. And those who chase it spend their lives frustrated and insecure. Progress is honest. Progress acknowledges that growth is messy, that improvement takes time, that mistakes are part of the process. When you condition your mind to expect progress, you allow yourself room to breathe, room to experiment, room to try again. Instead of asking, "Is this perfect?" you ask, "Am I better than I was yesterday?" That question fuels momentum, while the demand for perfection kills it. This is why conditioning your thoughts matters. Your mind doesn't automatically think progress. It defaults to judgment, comparison, and fear. That is why you must train it every day. Each morning, remind yourself that today you are not chasing perfection. You are chasing progress. You are aiming to take one step, to learn one lesson, to improve one habit. Those small gains may not look impressive at first, but they add up over time into incredible transformation. Perfection is rigid. It demands exact standards, and anything less feels like failure. Progress is flexible. It allows room for mistakes, because mistakes are information, not evidence of defeat. When you live with a perfection mindset, every setback feels crushing. When you live with a progress mindset, every setback feels like feedback. The event doesn't change, but the way you interpret it changes everything. Consider the student who insists on getting every answer right before they raise their hand. That student stays silent and misses the chance to learn. Consider the worker who won't share ideas unless they are flawless. That worker misses promotions and recognition. Consider the person who won't start a fitness plan until the schedule, the diet, and the plan are all perfect. that person never begins. Perfection becomes the excuse. Progress removes the excuse because you start where you are with what you have. Progress also creates energy. Each time you see a small improvement, you feel encouraged. That encouragement leads to more effort. That effort produces more results. Soon you create momentum that carries you forward. Perfection creates the opposite. Each time you fall short, you feel discouraged. That discouragement lowers effort. Lower effort produces fewer results. Soon you spiral downward. The difference between the two cycles is your mindset. Conditioning your thoughts to expect progress, repetition. When you catch yourself demanding perfection, stop and redirect. Say to yourself, I am here to improve, not to be flawless. Write it down if you need to. Say it out loud if you must. Over time, your brain will begin to adopt this new belief, and your actions will follow. One of the best strategies is to measure yourself against your past self, not against others. If you focus on competing with other people, you will always feel behind. Someone will always appear smarter, richer, fitter, or faster. But if you compare yourself to who you were last week, last month, last year, you see the truth. You are making progress. That realization builds pride without arrogance, and humility without shame. Another key is to celebrate small wins. Most people ignore them because they don't look perfect. They only celebrate the big victories, which come rarely. This leaves them feeling defeated most of the time. But when you acknowledge small steps, a healthier meal choice, a productive hour, a new skill learned, you fuel motivation. Your brain begins to associate effort with reward, which makes you want to keep going. Over years, these small celebrations become the foundation of sustained growth. Progress also frees you from fear of failure. When you expect perfection, failure feels unbearable. It feels like proof that you are not enough. But when you expect progress, failure becomes part of the journey. You know it is coming, and you use it as data to get better. Instead of running from failure, you embrace it as a teacher. That freedom allows you to try more, risk more, and achieve more. Think about relationships. Perfection demands that the other person never disappoints you, never makes mistakes, never falls short. That expectation destroys trust and creates bitterness. Progress allows room for growth. You recognize that both of you are learning, both of you are improving, both of you are building together. That expectation builds patience, forgiveness, and long-term strength. This mindset also applies to personal growth. If you expect perfection, you give up the first time you break a habit or miss a goal. If you expect progress, you keep going. You know one mistake doesn't erase all the steps forward. You know consistency over time matters more than flawless performance in the moment. This is how lasting change is built. Not through fears, but through persistence. The world itself is built on progress. Technology evolves through constant improvements, not one perfect invention. Medicine advances through countless trials, not one flawless discovery. Art grows through achievement, not a single masterpiece. If progress drives the world forward, why should your life be any different? Demanding perfection from yourself is unnatural. Choosing progress is aligned with how life itself works. So every day, condition your thought. When you wake up, decide, I am here to move forward today. I am here to be slightly better, slightly stronger, slightly wiser. I do not demand flawless execution. I demand honest effort. I do not need perfection to feel proud. I need growth. Each action, each choice, each improvement adds to the person I am becoming. And when you end the day, reflect not on what went wrong, but on where you moved forward. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What did I improve? What did I attempt? That reflection builds gratitude and resilience. It keeps your eyes on progress, not on the illusion of perfection. The truth is, perfection is a prison. Progress is freedom. Perfection destroys confidence. Progress builds it. Perfection stops you from starting. Progress pushes you to continue. And every time you remind yourself of this truth, you gain strength. Condition your thoughts daily to expect progress, not perfection, and you will free yourself from impossible standards. You will live with energy, with purpose, with resilience. You will rise higher, not because you were flawless, but because you were willing to keep moving forward. That is the real path to growth. That is how you climb And that is how attitude determines your altitude. Number 8, catch negative self-talk quickly before it shapes reality. The most powerful voice in your life is not the voice of your boss, not the voice of your parents, not the voice of your friends, and not even the voice of your critics. The most powerful voice is the one inside your own head. That voice is with you from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed. It can push you forward, or it can tear you apart. Negative self-talk is dangerous because it doesn't just stay in your head. It shapes how you see yourself, how you act, and eventually, the results you create. That is why you must learn to catch it quickly, before it has the chance to build momentum and turn into your reality. Negative self-talk often sounds subtle. It rarely starts as loud insults. It whispers in quiet moments when you're already tired or discouraged. It says things like, "You're not good enough. You'll never get it right. Why even try? You'll probably fail again." These thoughts may seem small at first, but they sink deep. If you leave them unchecked, they repeat until they feel like the truth. Your mind believes what it hears most often, even if it's a lie. The danger of letting negative self-talk run unchecked is that it becomes a lens. Instead of seeing opportunities, you see barriers. Instead of noticing your strength, you notice only weaknesses. Instead of trying new things, you stay stuck because you already convinced yourself you can't handle it. The thought turns into a belief. The belief turns into a habit, and the habit turns into your reality. That is why speed is critical. The faster you catch those thoughts, the less power they gain. It takes awareness to notice when you're slipping into that negative pattern. Many people are so used to speaking badly to themselves that they don't even realize it anymore. They've repeated the same destructive lines for years, and now it feels natural. But the fact that something feels normal doesn't mean it's good. You have to stop and listen to how you talk to yourself. Would you speak that way to someone you care about? Would you speak that way to your child, your friend, your partner? If the answer is no, then why do you accept it for yourself? When you catch negative self-talk, the next step is to challenge it. If the thought says, "You're not capable," ask yourself, is that really true? What evidence do I have? Most of the time you'll realize that the thought is exaggerated or simply false. You've overcome obstacles before. You've learned skills before. You've faced challenges and made it through. Negative self-talk ignores all of that evidence. By challenging it, you bring truth back into the conversation. Then replace it with a stronger thought. This doesn't mean you lie to yourself or pretend everything is perfect. It means you choose a thought that builds strength instead of weakness. For example, if the negative voice says, "You're going to fail," you replace it with, "I will give my best effort and learn along the way." If the voice says, "You're not smart enough," you replace it with, "I can grow smarter by learning every day." The point is not to deny reality, but direct your mind toward growth. Catching negative self-talk quickly is like stopping a fire before it spreads. One spark is easy to put out, but if you let it grow, it becomes a blaze that destroys everything in its path. The same with thoughts. One negative phrase can be replaced easily, but if you let it repeat, it builds an identity. Soon you're not just thinking, "I made a mistake," you're thinking, "I am a failure." That shift from an action to an identity is how negative talk becomes reality. This is why daily conditioning is essential. You can't just do it once. Every day you must train your mind to speak to truth with clarity, with honesty, and with encouragement. You prepare in advance because you know the negative thoughts will show up. They always do. But when you're ready, they lose their power. There's also a link between self-talk and behavior. If you tell yourself repeatedly that you're lazy, you begin acting lazy. If you tell yourself you're undisciplined, you stop trying to build discipline. But if you tell yourself you are capable of growth, you start taking actions that match that belief. Your words create your habits, and your habits create your reality. That is why protecting your inner dialogue is one of the most important disciplines you can ever practice. Some people think negative self-talk is harmless because it's just thoughts. But thoughts are seeds. Whatever you want grows. If you plant discouragement, you harvest defeat. If you plant belief, you harvest confidence. You cannot expect a strong life if your mind is filled with weak words. Strength begins inside, and the way you speak to yourself every day determines how strong you become. Practical tools can help. One method is journaling. Write down the negative thoughts you notice, and then write down the truth that replaces them. Seeing them on paper makes it easier to recognize how false and destructive they are. Another method is speaking affirmations out loud. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but your brain listens to repetition. The more often you speak empowering words, the more natural they become. Eventually, they drown out the old destructive patterns. Another practice is mindfulness. Throughout the day, pause and ask, what am I saying to myself right now? This awareness stops automatic negative thinking. The simple act of noticing gives you the power to change. And the more often you interrupt those patterns, the weaker they become. It's also important to surround yourself with people who reinforce positive thinking. If you spend time with people who constantly criticize or complain, your own self-talk becomes harsher. But if you spend time with those who encourage, challenge, and uplift, your inner voice learns from their example. Your environment shapes your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your life. Remember this: negative self-talk is not destiny, it is habit. And any habit can be broken if you are willing to work at it. It begins with catching it quickly before it multiplies. If you delay, it becomes stronger. If you act fast, it loses power. That choice belongs to you. Your reality is not shaped by what other people say about you, nearly as much as by what you say to yourself. External voices may spark doubt, but it is your internal voice that decides whether you accept that doubt or reject it. You can't always control what others say, but you can always control your own response. And your response determines whether you live with strength or weakness. Every time you stop a negative thought and replace it with a constructive one, you reclaim control of your mind. Every time you do it, you build a little more confidence, a little more resilience, a little more belief. Over weeks and months, this discipline transforms how you see yourself and how you show up in the world. So train yourself to move quickly. Don't allow negative self-talk to linger. Don't let it set up camp in your head. Catch it early, confront it honestly, and replace it with words that move you forward. Do this daily, and you'll notice your actions change, your emotions stabilize, and your results improve. In the end, your altitude in life is not determined by what happens around you, nearly as much as by what happens inside you. If you let negative self-talk rule your mind, it will pull you down. If you discipline yourself to catch it quickly and redirect it, you will rise higher than you ever thought possible. That is the power of choosing your inner voice. That is how you shape your reality, with intention, instead of letting it be beat by doubt. Number 9. Choose discomfort daily, because growth never comes from comfort. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort, and then they wonder why they feel stuck, why they feel restless, and why they are not where they want to be. Comfort is easy. Comfort feels safe. But comfort is the enemy of growth. If you want to build strength, if you want to achieve more, if you want to rise to a higher level, you must choose discomfort daily. Not once in a while, not only when forced, but every single day. Because growth never comes from comfort. Growth is born in challenge, in struggle, in those moments when you feel like backing away, but instead you step forward. Discomfort is the training ground for character. When you push your body to do one more rep, when you wake up earlier than your habits want, when you speak up in a room where your voice shakes, when you try something new that scares you, you are building resilience. Those moments feel uncomfortable in the present, but they are the very things that shape you into someone stronger in the future. Comfort feels good now, but costs you later. Discomfort costs you now, but rewards you later. The human mind naturally avoids pain and seeks pleasure. That is biology. But if you give in to that instinct, without question, you stay small. You repeat the same patterns, live in the same routines, and settle into the same limits. Discomfort is what interrupts those patterns. It is the doorway to something great. When you choose discomfort, you take control of your evolution instead of letting your instincts dictate your life. Think about the times in your life when you made real progress. Maybe you started a new job that challenged you. Maybe you moved to a new city and had to rebuild your life. Maybe you pushed yourself to learn a skill you didn't think you could master. None of that was comfortable, but all of it expanded you. You left the situation stronger, wiser, more capable. If you had stayed in comfort, none of that growth would have happened. Discomfort is not punishment. Discomfort is the signal that you are on the edge of growth. When you feel uneasy, when your stomach turns, when your heart races, that is the exact place where development is happening. Too many people interpret discomfort as a reason to stop. In reality, it is the reason to keep going. You don't grow by avoiding it. You grow by leaning into it. Choosing discomfort daily doesn't mean you have to do something extreme every day. It means you deliberately look for ways to stretch yourself. If you're shy, talk to a stranger. If you procrastinate, finish the hard task first. If you play it safe at turf, volunteer for the tough project. If you're afraid of failure, set a bigger goal than you're used to. These small choices, repeated daily, build a foundation of strength. Over time, you stop fearing discomfort because it becomes your normal environment. Comfort, on the other hand, weakens you. It makes you fragile. The more you avoid discomfort, the less you can handle it when life inevitably throws it at you. And life always will. No matter how much you avoid it, challenges will come. If you've trained yourself to embrace discomfort, you'll be ready. If you've trained yourself to hide from it, you'll break. The truth is, discomfort is not optional in life. It will come either by choice or by force. When you choose it willingly, you grow on your terms. When you avoid it, life eventually forces it on you in ways you are not prepared for. That's why the discipline of seeking discomfort daily is so powerful. It gives you strength before you need it. It prepares you for the battles you don't even know are ahead. Look at anyone you admire, anyone you see as successful, disciplined, or influential. None of them got there by chasing comfort. They lived in discomfort. They chose it every day when they trained harder, worked longer, sacrificed more, and risked failure. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They stepped into discomfort and grew into readiness along the way. That is the path available to you too, if you choose it. Psychologically, discomfort rewires the brain. Every time you do something uncomfortable and survive, your brain updates its limits. What once felt impossible becomes normal. What once felt scary becomes routine. This is how courage is built. It's not about removing fear. It's about proving to yourself that you can act even when fear is present. Each repetition of discomfort raises the ceiling of what you believe you can handle. There is also a deep sense of pride that comes from choosing discomfort. At the end of the day, when you look back, you don't feel proud about the easy choices. You feel proud of the moments you pushed through resistance. Pride doesn't come from comfort. Pride comes from effort, from discipline, from stepping into the uncomfortable and not backing down. That pride becomes part of your identity, and it fuels you for the next challenge. Choosing discomfort also makes life more meaningful. Comfort dulls the sense. It makes days blend together into routine and boredom. Discomfort wakes you up. It makes you feel alive because you're doing something that stretches you. It puts you in situations where you have to pay attention, where you have to engage fully, where you can't sleepwalk through your day. That aliveness is what most people are missing because they've chosen comfort for too long. To toe this discipline, start with awareness. Notice when you avoid something simply because it feels uncomfortable. Notice when you delay, when you hesitate, when you choose the easier path, even though you know the harder one would make you grow. Catch those moments and redirect. Step into the discomfort deliberately. The more often you do it, the more natural it becomes. You can also practice asking yourself a simple question each day. What is one uncomfortable thing I can do today that will make me better? Answer that question honestly and follow through. Some days it might be physical, like pushing harder in your workout. Other days it might be mental, like tackling a difficult project. Other times, it might be emotional, like having a conversation you've been avoiding. The category doesn't matter. The act of choosing discomfort matters. Over time, you'll notice that your threshold for discomfort rises. What once felt terrifying now feels manageable. What once felt overwhelming now feels like routine. That growth is the evidence that your discipline is working. You are becoming a different person. Stronger, braver, more resilient. Comfort keeps you the same. Discomfort changes you. If you want to change your life, you must change your relationship with discomfort. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, See it as something to embrace. Instead of running from it, run toward it. Instead of waiting until you're forced into it, choose it daily. And when you do, you'll notice something extraordinary. While most people are stuck bored and weak from choosing comfort, you will be moving forward, alive and strong from choosing discomfort. That difference will show in your results, in your confidence, and in your ability to rise higher. Growth never comes from comfort. Growth always comes from discomfort. So choose it, embrace it, and make it part of your daily life. The higher life you want is waiting, but you won't find it in ease. You'll find it on the other side of discomfort. And that side belongs only to those willing to step in every single day. Number 10, tell yourself daily that failure means feedback, not identity. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human life. From the time you are young, failure is presented to you as something shameful, something to avoid, something that says you are not good enough. A low grade in school, a lost game, a missed opportunity. These moments are often stamped on your mind as proof that you are less capable or less worthy. That conditioning is powerful, and if you don't change it, you carry it into adulthood. Start to believe that when you fail, you are a failure. But that belief is a lie, and it destroys potential. Failure is not your identity. Failure is feedback. It is information about what did not work, a signal about where to improve, a mirror reflecting what needs adjustment. When you start telling yourself this truth daily, you begin to live with courage instead of fear. The difference between people who keep rising and those who remain stuck is not that one group avoids failure. Nobody avoids it. The difference is that one group defines themselves by it, while the other group uses it as data. Those who see failure as identity stop trying after a few attempts. They say things like, "I'm just not good at this," or "I'll never succeed," or "This isn't for me." They accept failure as a permanent label. But those who see failure as feedback ask different questions. They ask, what went wrong? What can I do differently? How can I improve for next time? Their identity remains intact, while their strategy evolves. That shift in mindset is what produces long-term success. Failure feels painful because it collides with ego. It reminds you that you are not perfect, that you are vulnerable, that you have gaps. But that pain is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to wake you up. The discomfort of failure grabs your attention in a way that comfort never does. It forces you to reflect. It forces you to grow. If you can separate the pain of failure from your sense of self, you unlock the power it carries. You no longer say, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." You say, "I failed, therefore I learned." Think about how many breakthroughs in history came after repeated failure. Inventors, entrepreneurs, athletes, leaders, none of them got it right the first time. They faced rejection, mistakes, setbacks, and losses. But they understood that every failure carried feedback. The machine didn't work, so they adjusted the design. The product didn't sell, so they studied the market. The shot didn't land, so they trained their technique. Each failure pointed to something specific that needed change. Without that feedback, they would never have reached the level of excellence that made them successful. Failure as identity is destructive because it freezes action. When you believe that failure defines you, you fear trying again. You avoid risks. You play small. You stay in safe spaces where you cannot be judged. Over time, this leads to stagnation. You never fail again, but you also never grow again. You protect your ego at the cost of your future. That is the silent tragedy of those who never reframe failure. Failure as feedback does the opposite. It frees you to act more often. You understand that each attempt is not a verdict, but an experiment. You try, you gather data, you adjust, you try again. You stop seeing failure as wasted effort and start seeing it as progress in disguise. Every failure becomes a step forward because it shows you what not to do. And sometimes that lesson is more valuable than immediate success. You must remind yourself of this daily. Because the old conditioning runs deep. Every day you will face moments where things don't go as planned. A conversation doesn't land the way you hoped. A project falls short. A plan unravels. In those moments, your first instinct may be to criticize yourself, to label yourself as not good enough. That instinct must be interrupted. You must catch it and replace it with truth. This failure is not me. It is feedback for me. That repetition rewires your brain over time until it becomes your natural response. There is also a practical way to reinforce this mindset. After every failure, write down 3 lessons you can take from it. By doing this, you train yourself to look for the value instead of the shame. You shift your focus from self-blame to self-improvement. Over time, you'll notice that you no longer fear failure, because you know every setback will leave you stronger. Another practice is to remind yourself of past experiences where failure led to growth. Think back to a time when something didn't work out, and yet in hindsight, it pushed you to improve or redirected you to something better. Rejection from one opportunity may have opened the door to another. A mistake may have forced you to develop a skill you may rely on. These reflections build confidence that failure is not the end. It is part of the path. It's also important to change the way you talk about failure. Language shapes belief. Stop saying, "I failed," as if it's who you are. Say instead, "That attempt failed," or "That approach didn't work." Do you see the difference? The failure is attached to the action, not to your identity. When you separate the two, you protect your self-worth while still accepting responsibility. That balance is key. You don't deny the failure, but you also don't let it define you. Children are a clear example. When a child is learning to walk, they fall repeatedly. Nobody calls them failures. We encourage them. We cheer them on. We recognize that falling is part of learning. Somewhere along the way, adults lose this perspective. They forget that failure is still just falling forward. If you can return to that mindset, you'll rediscover the courage to try again and again. Failure also humbles you in a way that success cannot. It strips away arrogance. It reminds you to stay disciplined. It forces you to respect the process. That humility, combined with persistence, creates a character that success alone could never cure. In this way, failure is not your enemy. It is your silent partner in growth, but only if you see it as feedback. Another truth is that most people are not judging you as harshly as you think. You fear failure because you think others will define you by it. But people are too focused on their own struggles to analyze yours, and often they respect you more for trying than for playing it safe. The only one truly branding you as a failure is yourself. When you change that internal voice, you remove the heaviest weight you've been carrying. So tell yourself daily, failure means feedback, not identity. Make it a ritual. Say it in the morning before the day tests you. Say it at night when you reflect on what went wrong. Repeat it until it becomes embedded in your thinking. That repetition is how you overwrite the old story of shame with the new story of growth. When you do this, you will notice a new freedom. You will start projects you once avoided. You will speak up when you once went silent. You will take risks that once felt too scary. And even when those risks don't work out, you'll stand tall because you know failure didn't damage who you are. It simply taught you how to become better. Over a lifetime, the person who avoids failure to protect their identity lives a smaller life. The person who embraces failure as feedback lives a larger one. They grow, they expand, they contribute, they achieve. Their altitude is determined not by their talent alone, but by their attitude toward failure. And that is the choice in front of you every single day. You cannot control whether you fail, but you can control whether failure becomes your identity or your feedback. Choose wisely, and you will rise higher than fear ever allowed you to imagine. So here's the truth you can't ignore. Your future will not be decided by luck, chance, or even talent. It will be decided by the attitude you carry every single day. If you choose excuses, negativity, and comfort, you'll stay stuck where you are. But if you choose discipline, solutions, and the courage to grow, there's no limit to how high you can go. Your altitude in life is waiting on your attitude right now. The question is, what kind of attitude will you walk with tomorrow morning? If today's message spoke to you, don't just let it fade when the video ends. Put it into action. Come back and keep feeding your mind with the kind of words that lift you high. Because this isn't just one lesson. It's a way of living. And I want you walking this path with me every step of the way.